Hello. I feel like behind me looks like an absolute mess, even though it's not. It's kind of a me problem, isn't it? Anyway, we're gonna get right back into In Geek This Week, episode 5 today. Hope you're excited. Let's get into the video. As a reminder, we have our own merch. Check out the Redbubble link. You can get some good time zone merch in a lot of different styles and pieces and all that. So there's probably something for you there. So it's been a bit since we've done it in Geek This Week, so I just want to go back over our formatting for it. So we start off with things that I've really enjoyed lately in the last month or two. They don't have to necessarily be things that were just released within the last month or two, but things that I've just stumbled upon during that time, if they aren't new releases. And then we will get into things coming up that we're really stoked on. I'm so good at this, I never mess anything up, ever. For sure. So to start things off, we're going to talk about some movies, shows, and games I've been into lately. Blood Red Sky. It's a movie on Netflix.
Ist das ihrs?
Ich habe ein Rezept dafür.
Deine Mutter immer noch nicht da?
Sie nimmt gerade ihre Medizin. Dadurch produziert der Körper neues, gesundes Blut. Aber in Amerika gibt es einen Arzt, der kann sie wieder gesund machen.
Don't touch me, okay?
Sir.
Was ist denn los?
Ladies and gentlemen.
As you can see, we have control of the plane.
Wow. Just not what I expected at all. I tend to steer away from hijacking movies because, you know, since 9/11, not living that far from 9/11, it impacting people I know. Too many feelings, too many thoughts. So I typically steer clear from hijacking movies. However, this one is different. The hijackers are not the focal point. They are obviously a crucial part, of course, but the thing we are going to deal with, the monster that comes out, is actually on the good side. Unexpected, and I kind of love that. It paints monsters in a different light where their afflictions or their curse or whatever does not define them, and I love that whole trope, that whole concept. So I super recommend it, and the chemistry between the lead person and their child, loved it. I truly, truly believed in their bond and them looking out for each other. Another movie I really liked lately, No One Gets Out Alive. It's not my favorite horror movie that I've seen of late. There are problems with it that I find a little cliche. However, the monster makes up for it in my mind. I'm kind of a sucker for atmospheric, creepy, and especially a unique creature. Something that I haven't really seen before, or that's just done so well and differently than I've seen prior. And for me, that's what No One Gets Out Alive did. I really got so ingrained in this box, made me super think Hellraiser vibes. It's not the same, but it made me feel that way, and I have only recently seen Hellraiser and loved it, so anything that even makes me feel a little bit like that gets me really hyped.
Hello?
I must prepare you.
Come here! We should stay together. Let's get out of here.
The Witcher Season 2, that's right, it's finally out if you've been living under a rock. Super, super loved it. It lived up to all of my expectations. I binge watched it in, I think, a night.
The war's just begun.
It's so good, and I've been enjoying it even more because I just recently started replaying The Witcher 3, and it makes me have a better grasp and a better understanding of all the little things happening in The Witcher. And that doesn't mean plot necessarily. I mean little things like the signs that The Witcher utilizes. The first time when I watched season 1, I hadn't played a Witcher game yet. So it all kind of felt like a foreign language. And now I feel a little more ingrained, a little more understanding of this world and the lore. Another show I've been watching, also Netflix, clearly a little bit addicted to Netflix lately, Hellbound. So, huge thing about Hellbound. If you are someone who can't get past CGI being not the greatest, then you're not going to like this. However, I super can get past that if the concept is really fucking cool, the acting's good, I feel immersed, you know? And it really has been done so well. I'm not all the way through yet, so don't spoil anything for me. But I'm just really entranced by this. It's not Death Note-like, but that's obviously what I initially thought of when I first started watching it. It's about this ancient entity, almost, can come to people and prophesize when they will die.
인간은 왜 죄를 지을까요? 이 죄는 인간이 죄 짓고자 하기 때문에 있는 거.
The monsters aren't scary in the way that I would typically look for a scary, terrifying monster. It definitely plays a lot on the whole religion trope, but in the way that you also think they're kind of batshit at times. So it's done well. I think it's done super well. You don't need to be a religious person to find it scary, because I know that's something that isn't always done very well, in my opinion. Sometimes there are horror movies that rely so heavily on religious aspects that if you're not a religious person at all, you kind of think the whole thing is silly. But I do not feel that way at all about Hellbound, and I would very highly recommend it. 2 games I've been getting into this month. So Witchwood, actually, huge shout out to the devs. They gave it to me for free on Keymailer, and I'm incredibly appreciative for that. Such a cute game. It is kind of gathering style, but you're going on quests. You have to do some missions for townsfolk. You're gathering souls. That's the whole purpose. And you are getting souls for a goat, because you apparently owe them souls, which I guess the goat is the devil. More religious-y stuff in here, but that's really the peak of the religious aspect of this, just that the goat pretty much is the devil, at least from what I've seen. To be fair, now that I think about it, they do have some interesting things that make you think cult. Okay, I digress. It's a game that you can kind of just do at your own pace and enjoy. It reminds me a lot of The Last Campfire in terms of how I'm playing it, where I'm just kind of going as I feel like and enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the story, enjoying the characters. The other game I've just gotten into, which is an older game, because Witchwood did just come out, but this game is Northgard. So I've never played an RTS before, despite the fact that I've purchased RTSs and they've just lived in my library. But I'm addicted. It's Norse mythology based, which is, I think, what kind of captivated me and made me realize I need to do this. I need to try. If there's kind of a mythological, mystical, or fantasy feel to something, I think it helps get me involved in it. So I've been kind of too worried that I would suck at RTSs. I have Civ 6 and I'm afraid to do it because it seems like a really hard game. Don't get me wrong, Northgard's kicking my ass. I've only beaten it 1 time on easy. I've done all of the story mode though. But I'm definitely struggling and I'm enjoying the challenge. I am definitely figuring out how to strategize, how to help my clan. And I like that you can choose from a variety of clans. They all have their own little quirks and perks. And there are some DLC clans you can get. Haven't gotten any of those yet, but very, very intrigued based upon the fact that the DLC ones keep killing me in Conquest mode, but I recommend. Lots of fun. I've been addicted. Now that we've gotten through the things that I got into the last couple months, let's get into some things coming up that we're excited about. For starters, the new Pokemon Legend of Arceus, I couldn't be more hype on. It's supposed to be, in theory, Breath of the Wild for Pokemon. But I also think people need to be careful with their expectations because I don't anticipate it being exactly like Breath of the Wild, nor necessarily hitting the heights that Breath of the Wild did. I'm actually currently doing a Breath of the Wild playthrough, trying to finish that before this, but that way we can have a nice stark contrast in terms of visual appeal, but also depth, because something I love about Breath of the Wild is how small you feel all the time, and I can't picture Pokemon doing that, but I'm intrigued to see nonetheless. I know nothing about it except the trailers because I don't want to spoil anything for me. I want this to be an absolutely new experience. And I may have a little bit of Nintendo glasses when it comes to Pokemon. They can kind of do no wrong in my eyes. Don't get me wrong, it's very important to be able to critique and say things that aren't fantastic about it. But overall, Pokemon always just makes me happy, so even with the downsides of a game, I can usually get around that. With some exceptions. Sun and Moon, let's not talk about it. Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song is coming out supposedly in May. I really want to play this. I've been talking about Vampire the Masquerades nonstop ever since getting into the tabletop RPG. I had a friend at the time who really liked Vampire the Masquerade, also in the actual video game form, but I never have had a chance to try it. But a vampire obsession is always, you know, warranted. I looked at the trailer for this, and it looks so good compared to the past Vampire the Masquerades I've seen, so you have my attention.
When did life become so cheap? Have we always been so fragile? I have lived many lifetimes.
The Legend of Vox Machina. It's supposed to have a January 28 release, so really soon. Hopefully I get this out in time. I am so stoked for this. I have friends who are huge Critical Role fans. I'm nowhere near the level that they are at, but I can appreciate a good thing when I see it. And also the comics I've seen of Vox Machina, I feel like it's a new thing that I could get easily wrapped up into and very much be okay with.
Only hope lies in these brave warriors.
What the fuck?
Right. Who else have we got?
A Game of Thrones spin-off that's coming, since we're not going to get another Game of Thrones, but we're going to get a spin-off, House of Dragons. This is supposed to take place 200 years prior to the stories from Game of Thrones. So I'm really intrigued to see how they do this, to see if they're going to keep things canon that were canon in Game of Thrones, or if it's kind of supposed to be decently separated. I understand that there's a decent number of years between the two, but I'm interested to see if they go very far into the spin-off world and just have a taste of Game of Thrones, or if we're going to get that very don't get too attached to characters feel that we had in Game of Thrones.
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
So Dark Harvest is a movie coming out in September of this year. It is the epitome of what I look for in a movie, based on descriptions. I have never read the book, which it is based on a book, so I may have to pick that up to let you know my thoughts on that as well, and also compare the two, because I love doing that. But it's creepy, it's a little spooky and eerie and fantasy. The image for the poster is so fantastic, I would totally hang that in my room. This movie takes place kind of the way it sounds like Children of the Corn might. Granted, I'm basing it off it being in a cornfield, but it sounds like a being comes to life and butchers people. And I'm a horror fan, so I'm freaking stoked to see this one. You will definitely hear me talk about this one in an upcoming In Geek This Week. For sure. Another movie coming out this year that doesn't have a direct date just yet is Fresh. This is a very interesting creep factor thriller movie. It reminds me a lot of You, just based upon summaries and brief explanations being given.
Let's play a game. Tell me something you don't want me to know.
I hate this.
Okay.
Put all our hopes in finding happiness through someone else.
I'm guessing this person's gonna end up being a vampire or cannibal or something based upon what I've read about it thus far, but it seems eerie, and I'm always a fan of that. Eerie in the way that You was in the first season, not when it kind of declined. And the last thing I'm excited to watch is Deep Water. This movie also doesn't have a date just yet, but it is about a couple, and the man is okay with his wife being with other people to help their marriage, supposedly, and then her lovers start going missing, and he becomes the prime suspect. That sounds really weird and creepy and just sketchy enough that I need to see it. That's right, just sketchy enough that I need to see it. I hope you enjoyed this In Geek this week. I know there's a lot of horror overtaking many things lately. I seem to be leaning towards the creepier, spooky side. I hope you're going to enjoy this journey with me. I promise we'll mix it up with other stuff as well, so you are not stuck just hearing about gore and freak show. But I appreciate you being here, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good one. If you like this video, I have more. Could you believe it? I have more. Maybe click it? Something to do?